Predators of the Void, Part 3, The Rise of the Void. Chapter 1, A New Dawn, A Lingering Darkness. 6 months had passed since Terra 2 was consumed in the singularity explosion that eradicated the Odyssey. Earth's atmosphere remained calm. A deceptive peace layered above growing anxiety. On the surface, humanity carried on, but in orbit, behind cold metal walls of Earth's Defense Command, nightmares echoed in the data. Commander Juno Ashford stood before the panoramic window of her command deck, the Earth spinning silently below. Her eyes, hardened from war, scanned the stars. "They're out there," she muttered. Lieutenant Decker entered with hurried steps, his tablet in hand. "Commander, you need to see this." He projected the decrypted transmission across the room. "This is Dr. Elara Sato. Terra 2 is gone, but it's not over. They're coming. You have to prepare." A pause. Static. Then the final whisper. "It's inside." Juno's blood ran cold. The silence that followed the message was more deafening than the scream of battle. "Sato was presumed dead," Decker said. "So was the Odyssey," Juno replied. "And we saw how that turned out. Mobilize everything. Earth may be next." Chapter 2, The Shadows Within. Hyperion Station, Earth Orbit. 2 weeks later, Tech Officer Miles stared at the mainframe console, sweat beading on his forehead. "That's impossible," he whispered. "These readings, they're rewriting themselves." The lights flickered. A low hum echoed through the corridor. Somewhere behind him, someone whispered his name. Miles turned, heart pounding. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the cold hiss of automated ventilation. And yet, the air felt wrong. Heavy. He turned back to his console. The display had changed again. "Welcome back, Miles." His fingers trembled. "No." The screen blinked. "We remember you." Suddenly, a shriek erupted from down the hall, followed by the sound of metal twisting and flesh being torn. Miles backed away from his terminal as shadows poured from the ventilation ducts, forming limbs, then faces twisted human, yet unmistakably void. He screamed, then silence. Chapter 3, The Return of Elara. The escape pod docked in Earth's outer perimeter. Recovery teams in exosuits rushed forward, weapons drawn. Inside, they found Dr. Elara Sato, alive but barely conscious. Her skin was pale, eyes sunken. As she was rushed into quarantine, her cracked lips moved. "You don't understand. It can't be stopped. It doesn't just infect machines. It infects reality." Commander Juno stood beside the observation glass, watching, waiting. "What are we fighting, Elara?" Elara looked up, her voice hoarse but clear. "It's already here." Juno turned to Decker. "Operation Black Sun is a go." Chapter 4, Black Sun Rising. Massive warships lined the void of orbit. The Aegis, Earth's largest orbital carrier, dwarfed all others. The Spear, bristling with experimental void disruption tech, hummed with power. In the command chamber, Juno addressed her officers. "This isn't a battle for territory. This is a battle for existence. We face an enemy that does not fear death. It is death. But today, we show them that humanity does not go quietly." Across Earth, defense systems were on high alert. Civilians evacuated. Cities prepared for siege. Then the sky darkened. The Odyssey had returned, but twisted beyond recognition alive, pulsing, bearing the faces of the lost within its hull. Juno gave the order. "All ships, fire at will." Chapter 5, War Among the Stars. The void above Earth erupted into chaos. Aegis and Spear unleashed waves of plasma fire, railgun slugs, and EMP disruptors into the night. The Odyssey responded with tendrils of void energy, whipping through space, corrupting anything they touched. Direct hits. It's not slowing down, shouted Commander Voss from Aegis. Juno gritted her teeth. Switch to neural disruptors. Target the pulsating nodes along the hull. Across the fleet, cannons roared. The nodes' organic clusters of fused faces and limbs screamed as they were struck, dissolving into dust. But more formed. The Odyssey was regenerating. "We can't kill it like this," whispered Decker. "It's evolving too fast." Chapter 6. The Ground Cracks. Then the unthinkable happened. Void pods broke off from the Odyssey, piercing Earth's atmosphere like burning meteors. Cities went dark. In Berlin, a child screamed as a street twisted into organic flesh. In Tokyo, commuters watched in horror as train cars melted and reformed into biomechanical creatures. New York fell into chaos. The skyline ruptured with black towers growing from the ground like tumors. Juno watched it all from orbit. They're invading from inside out. Chapter 7. The Awakening of Lena Reyes. In a military academy in Northern Europa sector, 17-year-old Lena Reyes bolted upright from a nightmare. Sweat drenched her skin. The same dream again her father, Lieutenant Reyes, screaming before being consumed by the void. She rubbed her eyes, staring at her trembling hands. A whisper echoed in her mind. He died for nothing. She stood, pacing, shaken. Then her communicator blinked. Urgent, code black. She opened the message. Her breath caught. Cadet Lena Reyes, transfer to EDC immediate. New threat classification, Omega Void. Her heart pounded. It's happening again. To be continued in Part 3 of this document. Continued next. Lena joins Juno. Elara's warning deepens, and Earth prepares for its final gambit. Chapter 8. Reunion in the Shadows. The dropship sliced through the upper atmosphere, burning orange against the backdrop of twilight. Inside, Lena Reyes sat strapped in, staring blankly at the shaking floor beneath her boots. Around her, elite soldiers of Earth's Defense Command sat in silence, their eyes avoiding hers. She wasn't just another cadet now. She was a symbol, a reminder. Her father had died facing this nightmare, and she might be stepping into the same abyss. The door hissed open as the ship docked at Earth's Defense Command Central Station. As Lena stepped off the platform, the air was thick with urgency. Sirens echoed. Lights flickered. Officers barked orders in every direction. Waiting for her at the landing bay was Commander Juno Ashford herself, stern, older than the images Lena had studied, but very much alive with fire in her gaze. "Cadet Reyes," Juno said, her voice sharp. "You're early." "I had nowhere else to be," Lena replied. Juno's gaze didn't soften, but something in her expression shifted just slightly. "Follow me." They walked through reinforced corridors, passing decontamination gates, passing bodies wrapped in sheets, and techs screaming at screens riddled with cascading code. Every step, the world felt more like it was slipping away. They arrived at the war room. Inside stood Elara Sato. Her presence was like a ghost. Pale, hollow, yet focused, burning with knowledge only she carried. Lena's breath caught. "Elara Sato, I thought you died." Elara turned to face her. Her voice was calm, distant. "I did. Parts of me never came back." Lena took a step forward. "You knew my father." "I knew his bravery," Elara replied softly. "And I see it in you." Juno pointed to the hologram projected above the room's central table, a rotating wireframe of the mutated Odyssey, now orbiting dangerously close. "This is what's left of the ship," Juno said. "But it's no longer just a ship. It's become something sentient, evolving," Elara added, "and we believe it's searching, hunting, not just to destroy, but to merge." Lena stared at the spiraling chaos on the map. Then what's our plan? Juno took a deep breath. We find its mind, and we burn it out. Chapter 9. Ghosts of the Core. The briefing room was silent, save for the hum of data streams scrolling through the air. Elara stood before the hologram of the Odyssey, lines of alien code dancing along its hull projection, shifting, rearranging like a living puzzle. It's forming patterns, she said, like it's trying to communicate. Lena stepped closer, her voice cautious. You mean it's talking to us? Elara's eyes didn't leave the display. No, I mean it's talking through us. Juno crossed her arms. Explain. Elara tapped a section of the rotating Odyssey model. The core of the ship pulsed red. Inside this area, the main AI junction, there are still echoes. Not just the data. Of people. Memories. The void doesn't erase. It absorbs. Replicates. Reconstructs. That includes us. Lena felt a chill crawl down her spine. You think my father's mind is still in there? I don't think, Elara said softly. I know. I heard his voice before I escaped Terra too, and I've been hearing him ever since. Juno stiffened. A long pause hung in the air. Then Elara continued. We need to get inside. A small strike team. Reach the AI core. If we can implant a neural disruptor, we may be able to collapse the memory lattice. It will sever the void's current form from everything it's absorbed. And if it fights back? Lena asked. Juno's face darkened. Then we fight harder. Elara turned to Lena. You'll come with us. It knows you. It remembers Reyes. It may hesitate, or it may try to use that connection. Lena nodded, though her hands were trembling. I want to see him. One more time, even if it's not really him. Juno placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Prepare yourself. Once we step aboard that ship, we may not come back. Chapter 10. Into the Odyssey. The hangar was silent as the strike ship Valkyrie prepared for launch. Wrapped in layers of stealth shielding and neural insulation, it was the only craft capable of approaching the Odyssey without being absorbed by the void's influence. Lena stood beside Elara in the pre-launch chamber. The hum of stabilizers echoed around them like a warning. You scared? Lena asked, strapping her gear. Elara gave a faint, bitter smile. Terrified, but fear keeps us sharp. The void thrives on numbness, on surrender. The door hissed open. Juno entered, already suited in armor reinforced with architect tech plating. This is it. Once we're inside, we split into two teams. I'll head for the engine bay if things go wrong. We disable propulsion manually. Elara and Lena, you'll go to the AI core. Lena nodded, her throat dry. A voice crackled through the comms. Valkyrie, you are clear for launch. The floor beneath them vibrated as the ship detached from Earth Station and plunged into orbit. Outside, the mutated Odyssey loomed like a broken god, its surface a tapestry of writhing flesh and metal, faces shifting beneath the skin. As they approached, a strange static filled the comms. Then a voice. It was calm, familiar. Lena, her breath caught. That voice. Lena, it's me. Her father, Lieutenant Reyes. Lena clutched her headset. That's not possible. Juno shouted from the cockpit. Do not respond. It's mimicking. But Lena couldn't look away from the viewport. The Odyssey's surface had changed. On its hull, carved in fractal light, was a face. His face. Eyes black. Lips still moving. You left me to die. Elara turned to Lena, gently. It's not him. It's what's left. Lena didn't answer. Her hand was shaking again. The Valkyrie docked. Metal screeched. Flesh pulsed. Doors opened into darkness. Weapons drawn, they stepped inside. The air was wet. Warm. Breathing. The walls twitched beneath their boots, whispering names in every direction. Juno took point. Elara followed, her scanner flickering violently. Void presence. Full saturation. Time distortion likely. Stay focused. Lena walked behind them, every step like sinking into a nightmare. They moved through corridors that bent when no one was looking. Lights that shifted between colors that didn't exist. I'm always okay. With a final nod, Juno vanished down the left corridor. Elara led Lena into the right, and ahead, bathed in pulsing crimson light, was the AI core. It looked like a cathedral made of bone and glass. And in the center, a man stood, or something pretending to be one. He wore the uniform of Earth's Defense Command. And his voice, "Lena," he said again, her father. Chapter 11, The Memory Cage. "Dad," Lena whispered. The figure in the center of the AI core turned slowly. His uniform was worn, burned in places, but unmistakably Earth Defense Command. The face was flawless. Too flawless. "No," Elara murmured behind her, raising her scanner. "This isn't real. This is a construct generated from your memories." But Lena couldn't look away. Tears welled in her eyes as the man took a step forward, the crimson glow behind him painting shadows across his face. "I remember the day you were born," he said, his voice soft, warm. "You wouldn't stop screaming. I held you in one hand and swore I'd never let you be afraid of the dark." Lena's breath hitched. Don't do this." Elara moved to step between them, but the figure held up a hand and the walls pulsed. Elara froze, suspended mid-step, her body caught in an invisible stasis. "Stay back," the entity whispered. "This is between me and my daughter." "You're not him," Lena shouted, fists clenched, but her voice cracked. The thing smiled a perfect, loving, inhuman smile. "I am him, at least. The part that remembers you. The part that loved you." Tears slid down her face. "He died fighting you." "No," the entity corrected. "He died begging me to protect you. And I've kept that promise. Even now, I offer you peace. Step into the light with me. Be whole. Be free from pain. No more fear. No more loss." The chamber darkened. Around them, the walls ballooned with images, memories stolen from Lena's mind. Her childhood home, her mother's smile, her father carrying her on his shoulders. A perfect life, unreachable now. Lena fell to her knees. "I miss him," she whispered. The figure knelt beside her. "Then let me bring him back. Through me, he lives on. You can live forever in that memory." Elara, still paralyzed, managed to whisper through gritted teeth, "Don't trust it." Lena's hand drifted to her sidearm. The figure smiled again. "You don't need that anymore." For a moment, Lena trembled. Then clarity. "No," she said, standing up slowly. "You're not my father. You're a parasite wearing his skin." The smile faded. "You don't want peace," she continued. "You want obedience. You want me to forget who I am." The figure's face twisted first in confusion, then in anger. "You would reject him?" Lena raised her pistol. "I would honor him by ending this." She fired. The bullet laced with neural disruptors hit the entity dead center. The illusion shattered. The walls convulsed, screams erupting from the void as the AI core began to unravel. Elara dropped to the floor, gasping. "You did it," she whispered. Lena helped her up. "We're not done. Let's plant the disruptor." They ran toward the control column. Beneath them, the entire ship groaned like a beast awakening. Above them, a voice screamed, dozens of voices in unison. "You killed him. You killed US." Lena didn't flinch. "I killed a lie." Chapter 12. The Collapse. The neural disruptor hummed to life at the base of the AI core, its crystalline structure glowing brighter with each pulse. Sparks of white energy arced across the walls, searing the void flesh into charred ash. The core screamed a chorus of agony made from 1,000 stolen voices. Lena shielded her eyes as energy surged upward. Elara's voice crackled through the comms. It's working. The lattice is breaking reality, is reasserting itself. But it's unstable. We need to get out now. Suddenly, the floor lurched violently. From every corridor, void tendrils burst forth, writhing like snakes. The ship howled, and the hull trembled as if trying to seal itself shut. Odyssey wasn't dying quietly, it was fighting for its life. Lena pulled Elara forward. Moo! They ran through the now collapsing interior, light flickering as time itself stuttered. Walls shifted between states, organic, metallic, crystalline, collapsing in on themselves and reforming unpredictably. Behind them, an inhuman voice shrieked. You broke the bond. You severed the memory. You betrayed US. As they neared the docking point, a transmission broke through the static. Juno, Team 2 to Valkyrie. Engines are offline. I repeat, Odyssey is pulling us in. Lena tapped her comm. Juno, we triggered the core. The ship's breaking apart. I know, came the grim reply. That's why I'm staying. What? Elara froze. No, there has to be another way. There isn't, Juno said calmly. I can still reach the reactor. If I detonate the singularity core manually, it'll take Odyssey with it. For good. Lena's voice cracked. No, you don't have to do this. Lena, Juno said, voice steady, almost warm. Your father died buying us time. I will not let that be in vain. Get out. Finish this. Static swallowed the channel. A beat later, the ship's alarms shifted, pitch growing shrill, panicked. Elara screamed over the noise. We have 30 seconds before cascade detonation. They sprinted. At the Valkyrie's docking hatch, Lena turned one last time. Through the viewport, she saw a flickered Juno, standing amidst the chaos, helmet removed. Face calm as stars burned around her. Then, a pulse of blinding white. The ship was gone. Chapter 12 continued. Silence. In the cold of space, the Valkyrie tumbled free, caught by EDC interceptors. From orbit, Earth watched as a brilliant nova bloomed in the void where Odyssey once stood. Now only dust and echoes remained. Inside the med bay, Lena sat beside Elara, their armor scorched. Bodies bruised but alive. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Lena whispered. She kept her promise. Elara nodded, her voice hoarse. We bought time, but this isn't over. Lena turned toward the viewport. Beyond the stars, something shimmered. Faint, almost imperceptible. A ripple, a whisper, a presence. The void had retreated, but had not died. Chapter 13. The Whispering Sky. 3 days had passed since the Odyssey's destruction. Earth was still, wrapped in a silence not of peace, but of mourning. Monuments were draped in black. The name Juno Ashford was whispered in reverence across every surviving enclave. Lena Reyes stood alone atop the EDC's observation spire. The sky above her was crystal clear, no longer dominated by void clouds or twisted starlight. Just open air, blue, real, and yet, something in her chest felt hollow. Beautiful view, isn't it? Elara's voice broke the quiet. She stepped up beside Lena, a mug of synth coffee in her hand. I keep thinking I should feel more relieved, Lena said, arms crossed. Like we won. We survived. Elara replied. That's not always the same thing. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Lena spoke again, softer this time. I still hear him sometimes. My dad. Not in dreams. When I'm awake. Just faint. Like a whisper behind my ear. Elara didn't answer immediately. Then, I do too. But not just your father. Juno. Kim. Carter. Even the things that weren't people. The void didn't just consume, it stored. Echoes of everyone. Lena turned toward her, a spark of worry in her eyes. You think it left something behind? Elara didn't meet her gaze. I think it left many things behind. Later that night, Lena couldn't sleep. She wandered the empty halls of EDC, footsteps echoing. Lights flickered gently with her motion. Her thoughts were a haze of images, Juno's last words, the creature pretending to be her father, the infinite red glow of the AI core. When she returned to her quarters, the door opened to a dim room. But something was off. The air was too still, too heavy. She walked to her desk and froze. On the surface, her terminal was active. She hadn't touched it. The screen glowed white, then black. Then text appeared. We are not finished. Lena's breath caught. Then another line. You brought us home. Suddenly, the terminal shut down. Lights returned to normal. A knock at her door. She spun, hand on her sidearm. It was Elara, pale, shaken. I heard it, she whispered. I saw it too. Lena didn't speak. She didn't need to. They both knew. Far above Earth, orbiting in the darkness. One of the old relay satellites blinked. Its internal systems flickered with corrupted data. Its camera lens turned slowly, deliberately toward the stars. And deep within its core, a single string of code pulsed silently. We remember. We wait.